The Volcorian Empire had conquered 47 worlds. Their soldiers were trained from birth. Their weapons could melt mountains. Their ships blocked out the sun when they arrived. No species had ever survived first contact with the Volcorian war machine. They came to Earth expecting another easy victory. Commander Thrall stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger in the viewing screen. His intelligence officers had studied this world for 3 standard cycles. The dominant species called themselves humans. They were soft. They were slow. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Their technology was primitive compared to Volcorian standards. The conquest would take perhaps 2 rotations at most. The invasion began on a cold morning in the region humans called Iceland. Thrall chose this location because it was isolated. His soldiers would establish a base here before moving to the larger population centers. 100,000 Volcorian warriors descended from the sky in their drop pods. They landed in the volcanic fields, their boots crunching against the black rock. The first day went exactly as planned. The small human settlements fell without resistance. The locals fled in their primitive vehicles. Thrall's soldiers secured a perimeter of 50 kilometers. They set up communication arrays and defensive positions. By nightfall, the commander declared the first phase complete. But something strange happened that night. The ground trembled. At first, the Volcorian soldiers thought it was natural volcanic activity. This planet was geologically active, after all. But the trembling did not stop. It grew stronger. Sensors detected movement beneath the surface, but the readings made no sense. There were thousands of heat signatures moving through the rock itself. Captain Vorn was the first to see them emerge. He was patrolling the eastern perimeter when the ground split open before him. Steam and smoke poured from the crack. Then a figure climbed out. It was human, but not like any human the intelligence reports had described. This creature was covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. Its helmet had no visible eye holes, just a smooth, dark surface. Orange light glowed from the joints of its armor, pulsing like living fire. The human carried a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. Vorn raised his rifle to fire. Before he could pull the trigger, 5 more humans emerged from the ground around him. They moved with impossible speed and coordination. Vorn managed to scream one word into his communicator before they reached him. That word was demons. Across the Volcorian camp, soldiers began reporting the same thing. But humans were coming up from below. They were everywhere. They came out of cracks in the rock, out of steam vents, out of places where the ground should have been solid. Each one wore that terrifying black armor with the glowing orange lines. Each one moved like a predator hunting prey. The Volcorians were warriors. They had faced countless enemies across the galaxy. They did not run. But this was different. This was something their training had not prepared them for. These humans did not fight like a primitive species. They fought like something much older and much more dangerous. Private Keth was guarding a supply depot when 3 humans emerged from a fissure 20 meters away. He opened fire immediately. His plasma bolts struck the lead human directly in the chest. The human did not fall. The armor absorbed the plasma like water soaking into sand. The human kept walking forward, its weapon rising to aim at Keth. Keth fired again and again. Nothing worked. His plasma rifle overheated and shut down. He threw it aside and pulled his sidearm. The bullets did nothing. The humans were now 10 meters away. Keth could hear them breathing through their helmets. It was a slow, mechanical sound that filled him with primal terror. He dropped his weapons and ran. He was not the only one. All across the volcanic field, Volcorian soldiers were abandoning their posts. The panic spread like fire through dry grass. Soldiers who had never retreated in their lives were now sprinting toward the extraction points, screaming for evacuation. Commander Thrall watched the chaos unfold through his tactical display. He could not believe what he was seeing. His elite warriors were running from humans. Primitive, weak, slow humans. He ordered his officers to rally the troops, to establish defensive lines, to counterattack. But his orders were lost in the noise of pure panic. The humans did not chase the fleeing soldiers. They simply walked through the abandoned camp, examining the equipment and supplies left behind. They moved with patient confidence, like they had all the time in the world. Some of them began dismantling the Valkorian communication arrays. Others collected weapons and ammunition. They were not just fighting. They were learning. Deep beneath the volcanic field, in tunnels that had been dug over months of preparation, General Sarah Chen watched the battle through drone feeds. She allowed herself a small smile. The Geothermal Assault Division had performed exactly as trained. The new thermal suits worked perfectly, channeling the planet's heat to power the armor while making the soldiers appear like creatures from nightmare. This was humanity's answer to alien invasion. When the first Valkyrian scouts had been detected 3 years ago, the world's governments had made a choice. They would not fight on the surface where the aliens expected. They would not use conventional tactics that the invaders could counter. Instead, they would become something else entirely. They would become the monsters that aliens told stories about to frighten their children. The underground bases stretched across the planet. Millions of soldiers had trained in the deep tunnels, learning to move through darkness and heat. Engineers had developed armor that used geothermal energy, making warriors look like beings of living fire. Psychologists had studied what frightened other intelligent species, designing appearances and tactics that triggered instinctive terror. Humans had decided to fight like demons because demons could not be defeated by superior technology. Demons could not be studied or predicted. Demons appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Demons made even the bravest warriors question their sanity. On the surface, Commander Thrall finally managed to restore some order. He gathered 3,000 soldiers at the primary extraction point. His shuttle pilots reported they were ready for emergency departure. Thrall was preparing to order evacuation when the ground beneath the extraction point began to glow. The heat sensors screamed warnings. Something massive was coming up from below. The Valkorian soldiers watched in horror as the rock surface turned red, then orange, then white. It melted away like ice under a flame. From the newly formed pit, a human vehicle emerged. It was huge, covered in that same black armor, with cannons mounted on every surface. Behind it came more humans, hundreds of them, walking through the molten rock without apparent concern. The Valkorian formation broke instantly. Soldiers threw away their weapons so they could run faster. Officers abandoned their units. Even Thrall himself felt the ancient instinct to flee rising in his chest. He fought it down, but barely. These were not supposed to be the prey. These were supposed to be easy targets. A human voice suddenly broadcast on all Valkorian frequencies. It spoke in perfect Valkorian language, which should have been impossible. The voice said only 4 words. Leave and never return. The translation was unnecessary. The meaning was clear in every language. Thrall gave the order to retreat. Not a tactical withdrawal, not a temporary pullback. Full retreat. Every ship was to leave Earth orbit immediately. Every soldier was to evacuate. The invasion was over. As the Valkorian shuttles lifted off, the humans watched from below. They did not fire on the retreating ships. They did not celebrate their victory. They simply stood in silence, their armor glowing in the cold dawn light. The message was clear. Earth was not worth the cost. In the weeks that followed, Commander Thrall submitted his report to the Valkyrian High Council. He described the fire demons that rose from the ground. He described soldiers who could not be harmed by plasma or bullet. He described impossible technology and terrifying tactics. The council listened in silence. The report spread through the Valkorian Empire and then beyond. Other spacefaring civilizations heard about the world where fire demons protected the surface dwellers. The story grew with each telling. Earth became known as the demon world, a place that no sane species would attack. General Chun read the intercepted communications with satisfaction. The plan had worked better than anyone hoped. Humanity had not just won a battle. They had created a legend. They had made themselves into something that the galaxy would fear. The underground bases remained active. The soldiers continued their training. The armor was improved and refined, because Chun knew that someday another species might be foolish enough to test the legend. When that day came, the fire demons would rise again. On the surface, the world returned to normal. People went back to their jobs and their lives. Children played in parks. Farmers harvested their crops. The aliens in the sky were just a memory, a story that parents told their kids. But everyone knew the truth. Beneath their feet, in tunnels that stretched across continents, an army waited. An army that had learned to be something more than human. The Valkarian Empire added Earth to their map with a special symbol. It meant, do not approach. Other empires did the same. Within a decade, every spacefaring civilization in the local cluster knew about the demon world. None of them wanted to test if the stories were true. Thrall never forgot what he saw on that volcanic field. In his dreams, he still saw those figures rising from the cracked ground, their armor glowing like embers from a dying fire. He still heard the screams of his soldiers as they fled. He still felt that ancient terror that no amount of training could overcome. Humans were not supposed to be dangerous. They were soft and slow and primitive, but they had become something else. They had looked at the stars and seen all the predators waiting there, and they had decided to become the greatest predator of all, not through strength or speed or natural weapons. Through pure, calculated terror. The fire demons were not real, of course. They were just humans in advanced armor using psychological warfare. But that truth did not matter. In the end, the legend was more powerful than any weapon. The legend would protect Earth for generations to come. And somewhere deep beneath the volcanic fields of Iceland, in tunnels lit by the planet's own heat, soldiers still trained. They still practiced their emergence drills. They still maintained their terrifying armor. Because humanity had learned an important lesson from the Valkorian invasion. The galaxy was full of predators looking for easy prey. Earth would never be easy prey again. The fire demons would make sure of that.